Hello, I'm Matt, and today I'm going to show you how to make pre-made MIDI chord progressions sound more natural in Logic. It's nice and easy, so let's get started. Okay, so pre-made MIDI chord progressions. To begin with, straight off the bat, I think they're okay as long as you do something useful and creative with them. Dragging and dropping chord progressions itself is really lazy and not cool, but if you take the extra steps to make them your own and to do something more creative with them, then I think they're a great asset to have and a great way of getting the ball rolling when you're working on a song. So that being said, let's crack on. So we're in Logic, obviously. Bring up a new software instrument, and I really like the sound of electric piano. It's also just nice and easy for you to be able to hear what's going on without too much distraction. So just basic. And I'm going to mix some MIDI chords from Captain Chords plugin. We're in C major, okay, fine. This part isn't particularly overly useful unless of course you got Captain Chords yourself, but let's just choose a nice 1, 4, 5, 6 progression and drag that in. Okay, so we've got that, and at the moment it sounds like some pre-made MIDI chords. It doesn't sound like it was done by a human at all. And here's how we can fix that. First off, we go into the editor, select all our notes, and then we come up the top, near the top left here. If you're not seeing this, it's usually in this drop down here, and we go to Quantize. I usually set it to, depending on the speed of the song, either 16 or 32. Let's go to 16 for now. And then we come down, again this bit might be hidden, it's in more, and we go to Q Flam, okay, Q Flam. Select this little drop down, big odd long list, and this is basically gives you like a strum. Now watch what happens to these notes when I select this. See that? It's quite subtle. Just sort of strums them and knocks them off to a slight slant. That's if you go plus. If you go minus, they kind of go the other way. So they go backwards like that. And obviously the further extreme you go, the more of a kind of strum you get. Real case in point, if you go all the way up to like 16th, this is where you kind of go almost like a arpeggiated steps sound. Sorry, turn that off for now. Let's come back to what should have been like 16ths. Sounding quite nice already. Okay, much better. Now, depending on the song you're working on and the sound, that might be fine. You might want a sort of da-da-dum, da-da-dum, or even slower, da-da-dum, da-da-dum. Then of course from there you can shorten the notes so there's less overlap. So I usually, in this instance, I'd set it to about 1/96, 96th of note, and that gives it sounds a bit more natural, like a human's playing it and they're trying to play all the notes at the same time. That's what you're going for, like that human element of I'm trying to play all these notes at the same time, but it's not quite perfectly in time. That's what we're going for. So the next thing I'd suggest doing is think about how. So you probably can't see, but I've got a keyboard controller down here, and you think about how you'd play a chord, even if you're not a pianist. You think about, I'm sure you can imagine, you know, the fingers on the piano. You think about how you'd play a chord. You'd usually start with a thumb, and then it's that kind of action, isn't it? So the most important note is usually the first. So that's where you want the strongest hit note. So you select your first notes or your root notes. You probably want to increase the velocity of those. And then that root note is the strongest out of those three. And then that's kind of, you know, the mid-level of customization to make these sound more natural. Then what I'd probably do is select the middle note, maybe drop that down a little bit. See, we're getting closer, because that means that these are, you know, go through the same sort of process if you use processing MIDI drum pattern, which has been brought in from somewhere else. You think about how a human would play that if it was on a real instrument, and it's not going to be perfect. Another way of doing it, selecting them all, going functions, MIDI transform, and humanize, and get something which looks quite complicated like this, and go operate only, and that's going to give you some randomness to the velocities within a certain degree. Okay, so that's already sounding miles better, much more human. You can also another thing I like to do when I'm bringing in pre-programmed chord progressions is to switch things up a bit. You know, add notes, take some away, just makes things a bit more interesting. So I'd add in an extra root note, just an octave up, again, it depends on the sound of the song and that you're going for, just to make the chords a bit bigger. In fact, I might increase that flam. Oh, another useful thing about chords on Logic, when you're in the editor window, if you select all the notes of the chord, this is easy to miss. I'll tell you here what chord that is. 4 notes selected, and it's a C chord. That's an F. That's a G. That's a A minor. So if you're not hugely up on your chord theory, That's useful little bonus tip. Another thing in the functions drop down, when you've got all your notes selected, functions, MIDI transform, there's all sorts of useful things in here, such as, you know, double speed, half speed, got the humanize, but we've also got this crescendo here. This is super handy. This is going to play with these velocities to make it crescendo, go up. So this is kind of the minimum velocity that was set. This is your maximum. One's usually pretty low, like barely audible. So you'd probably want to set the minimum to about probably around 40, 50 kind of mark. And then 127 is standard sort of max that MIDI will go. And then click operate, and you'll see these MIDI velocities change. This is what that sounds like. And there you go, that also works for, say, drums, lead sounds, anything that's using MIDI notes. Easy way to make crescendo, and then you can go in and tweak individually from there. So there you go, there's just a couple quick and easy ways to make pre-made MIDI chord progressions sound much more natural and human by playing with the velocity and the Q flam to make it sound like a strum. Okay, I hope it's been useful. Let me know any comments and questions down below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Cheerio.